and welcome back to Beating a Dead Horse. As always, I am your host, Sean McKinda, and on this very special episode, we have an interview with an author, newly published, newly onto the YA young adult novel scene. It is an exclusive interview with the brand new author of Kelly is Unbreakable, a fantastic new book available today on Amazon in both physical and ebook versions and on e-readers everywhere. But also, let's not bury the lead too much. It's our co-host, Jackson Keller.
Hey, I'm the author of Kelly is Unbreakable, Jackson Keller. Thank you for the lovely intro, Sean. Thank you. I couldn't have asked for anything more.
Absolutely. But without much ado about nothing, that was...
I got you thinking about Shakespeare.
You got me thinking about Shakespeare. Jackson, fuck that. Tell us about Kelly is Unbreakable.
Kelly is Unbreakable is my YA novel that I've been working on for quite some time. I brought it up here and there on the show, and it's finally getting released. You can finally read it today, as of now. Where it's a story about a young girl with superpowers who is depressed and lives in a small town, and her angry little friend tries to get her to do superhero things instead of dealing with their problems. Part Bridge to Terravithia, part Mob Psycho 100, like if Man of Steel was good.
You just couldn't get in there without taking a swing at Man of Steel, huh?
Well, it's funny because my disappointment with Man of Steel was actually one of the triggers that led to this book being made. I would have started it around the time that came out, and for a while, I was really excited about that movie, and I'd kind of deluded myself into thinking that I liked it.
God, that's got some heavy fucking delusions in there.
I know. I was thinking about it, like, because I remember, like, those trailers and, like, these ideas about, like, heroism and, like, the small town setting in the flashbacks. Like, that's all stuff that speaks to me, and Man of Steel fucked it up real bad. And so, basically this was me saying, well, I can do better than that. And I think I did.
I at this point have only read a third of the book, intentionally so. Don't think that I am just like dismissing my friend's book out of hand. I wanted to come into this with only a little bit of knowledge so I didn't accidentally spoil something in our little preview episode for Kelly is Unbreakable. But I'm willing to say that there's at least more happening in it than Man of Steel, and is not tarnishing the reputation of one of America's cultural icons.
High praise. Put that shit on the fucking book blurb.
Jackson Keller. Kelly is Unbreakable. Not tarnishing the name of one of America's legends. Sean McKinda, professional reviewer.
I was thinking more like, at least there's more happening than Man of Steel.
Both very much worthy of that dust jacket quote. So I'm looking forward to the second edition where my name is also on the cover, but it's only because I said something that is mildly damning with faint praise.
You can be featured on the special Hog edition in 2025 that I have to make now because I said that I would on Twitter as a meme. So come 2025, there will be a special Hog edition of the book if you want to wait for that.
You know what? I think I can. Well, listen, we're getting off track here. We're here to talk about Kelly is Unbreakable, everything that goes on with it. And as I said, I don't want to dig too far into it because I know that today, as of airing this episode, Tuesday, May 25th, you're going to be having a Twitch stream Q&A to talk about the book, to talk about your influences, to talk about literally anything that anyone can ask about a book, honestly.
Non-spoiler Q&A specifically. I do, because physical print books have been shipping like before the official release date. So my only request, please come by. It'll be a great time. I'll also be reading from a fun little chapter that I think will be fun to have from the author's own mouth. My only request for the Q&A is that we keep it spoiler free, keep it to like the first half of the book. Anything that's not spoiled by what's on the book blurb, basically.
So do you want to talk a little bit about, how Kelly is Unbreakable came to be at this point?
Yeah. So I've been trying to write a novel for a long time. This is, as you mentioned in your lovely intro, this is my debut. This is my first public work. And these main characters, Kelly and Chris, when I write, my old man told me something once, and that he was like, Jackson, don't ever throw any of your old writing away. And that left a very big impression on me, partially because it's really, really fucking funny to go back and look at how terrible your old shit is, including first drafts of this.
There have been questions texted to me in regards to this book that I shall not mention, but oh boy, did you give me... Okay, you want your praise here? This book is better than the questions you had asked me about it.
One day those memes will be revealed. Another time. Do you remember the mop line?
I don't remember the mop line.
It was as bad, if not worse. But those are first draft memes are memes for another time. But like these characters and their dynamic, this idea of a friendship that is in jeopardy, people who were once really close and still care about each other a lot, but like something is kind of pushing them away. Like that's always been at the core of this character dynamic. And I think why I kept coming back to it in different iterations, going far as back. The first iterations of these characters was in a terrible sci-fi game screenplay that I wrote back in high school. It was way different. Like nothing was the same. Pretty much the only things that remain from that time are the names of the main characters and, you know, not even their dynamic, but just that feeling, a distant friendship, a friendship that's in jeopardy. And that's the thing that sort of spoke to me the most. And that's the thing that's remained consistent, which got filtered in through ideas about superheroes and like growing up in Rust Belt America. I know that many a long evening in a dirty old parking lot was spent talking to my friend Sam, whom the book is dedicated to, about this and that nightmare story about, you know, where I grew up, where I went to high school. I remember like in college, Sean, I'd tell you and like our other friends some of these stories, and like you guys just would not believe the shit that I was saying about where I grew up. And so that strangeness, that peculiarity, that unique Rust Belt despair kind of got mixed in there as well. And that, yeah, I mean, it's been a long time cooking. I've been, you know, taking ideas from old things that are never going to see the light of day and, you know, just infusing them with stuff that I was thinking about in my real life. And also wanting to make a better superhero thing than Man of Steel.
Truly the most noble goal of them all. So would you describe, I mean, you've mentioned this a couple of times about like the whole core of a friendship kind of falling apart and being forced together in a Rust Belt lens. Is that the main thrust of the book? Like strip away the superhero stuff, strip away everything else going along with it. It's mostly about like the interpersonal relationship between these two characters?
Yes, I would say so. The fantasy element here, I compared it to Mob Psycho 100 at the beginning, and although I think thematically there are some similarities between Kelly and Mob in particular, I was actually, when I first watched Mob Psycho, the core of the book has been done for a very long time, but I went to like grad school and dusted it off here and there, but core of the book was already done by the time I watched Mob Psycho 100, and I watched that show and I'm just like, fuck, people are gonna think I stole from this, when I really didn't. Like, when I actually look at it now, it's not much like it, especially in terms of the tone. Like Mob Psycho is 80% funny, like 20% serious. This is like the other way around. But yeah, I think in that way, even though I definitely enjoy and took a lot of inspiration from anime and superhero movies and you know, some comics and some Superman stuff in particular. I read All-Star Superman around the time that I started this, even though I took a lot of inspiration from those kinds of stories. My main goal was always to write something that was more of a character drama than like an action-packed thing. So you know, the fantasy element is pretty light. It's basically just the main character and how, and it's more about how those like fantasy elements sort of impact her psychology and her day-to-day life more than anything.
You mentioned the tone of the book is like 80% dark and like 20% kind of funny, jokey stuff. How do you reconcile those two ideas in the book? Like, if you are a longtime Horsecast listener, you might know that Jackson is known for having some of the most wild takes on just whiplash tonal shifts. So I'm curious to see like how you reconcile that within a book intended a bit more for a general audience, shall we say, that's not, Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, that's not Hideo Kojima. Yep, there it is. No, I mean it's a really good question, because even as recently as grad school and in stuff that I've written after this that I sort of abandoned, part of the reason was the tone problem. Like, I'll admit that like one of my weaknesses, or something that I have to look out for as a writer, because I grew up on like, Metal Gear Solid and Nintendo games and fucking JRPGs and all that shit, and having those wild tonal lurches. I mean, that's definitely without like, some strong grips on the reins, like I could very easily go into Stupid Town with Kojima. And in the first draft, I definitely did. One thing that helps is having that self-awareness and realizing maybe where you tend to go wrong. And the other thing that really helps, I want to shout out my friend Duncan here, because he acted through as the main, not even an editor. What was great about, giving him the book to read was that he's a game designer, so he's not like a story person necessarily. But one of the reasons I really enjoyed getting his feedback was that when something was wrong or stupid or dumb, he'd be able to identify what it was, but like not ever tell me like how he thinks I should fix it, because, that's not his realm. So it was nice to still have that kind of editorial oversight while still kind of having the freedom to work through the problems kind of on my own terms and make them work into the story. And I think that's novels are one of the most like solitary art forms, but they're still collaborative in that way. Like, you can just write a bunch of gobbledygook and throw it onto the internet or at a publisher or whatever. But editors are there for a reason. They're there to help you out. They're a good editor or a good collaborator should make the thing grow into its best possible version. So I think that was a big part of it. And just the other thing is, I kind of wanted to capture the broad scope of experience, right? Like, life is not all just misery or just memes and goofiness. Even in a particularly miserable situation, like, there'll be funny, absurd stuff going on. And I think that my goal, first and foremost, especially when it came to the setting, was to like stay true to that, like speak to some sort of like true thing in the world. I always want to present the world like how I think that it actually is. And yeah, I don't know. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying that, but there.
So we've gone over the plot at this point. We've gone over some of the themes and characters, and we've gone over some of the tone. Honestly, this feels like a great place to wrap up a promo episode. Is there anything else that you really want to mention before we leave it off to you to tell people where to buy the book?
Not much I particularly want to add at this point. I think that if you enjoy like that kind of, character drama, slice of life sort of thing, I think that you'll, really enjoy it. Hopefully you'll connect with the characters and have some nice sads and some nice laughs. And I just hope that if you do go out and buy it, that you have a good experience with it. And so if you are interested, you can find that on Amazon.com. There will be versions for Nook, iBook, and Kobo. Those are going to be coming a little later, not too much longer. I'll be updating on my Twitter, probably, Jackson J. Keller. But for now, Amazon's the place to get it. Physical books will all be through Amazon, and the Kindle version as well. So yeah, that's available now.
Where is this Q&A happening tonight?
Oh, of course. The Q&A happening is on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/JacksonJKeller. We won't go for too terribly long, probably 15, 20 minutes of reading, and then another 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Well, thank you so much, for coming on your own show, I suppose.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean.
Absolutely.
I'm honored.
Yeah, no, it's great having you here. It's great talking to you. I feel like we haven't spoken in so long, and certainly will not be having an episode of Beating a Dead Horse regularly coming out on Thursday. But I guess it's unfortunate that's just not the case. It is the case. There's an episode coming out on Thursday. For now, though, please go purchase Jackson's book at Amazon.com. Keep an eye on those e-readers if you are looking to pick it up from another source. Kelly is Unbreakable, out today. Bye.